again. I can't believe that, like, it's been like 4 or 5 days now. I got back my 23andme DNA results, and I never updated you guys. Like, I did the initial video where I sent it in, and then I said I'd update you when I got it back, and I never updated on it. So anyway, I wanted to do a quick update on that. So I'm looking at the stuff here because I can't look at it on my phone while I record on my phone. So I wrote it down on a piece of paper. So it said I'm 99% European white. That is not a surprise to me. I knew I was white. Let's see here. Of the European, 94.8% of it is Northwest European. And so that wasn't really like a surprise either, because that includes like the Scandinavian regions, which if you watched my first video that I was going to send in the little tube to get tested, then you'd know that my guess was that there would be a large percentage of like Scandinavian, because my grandfather had Norwegian ancestry and I had a grandmother with like Swedish ancestry. But like, I was surprised by this Northwest European results, because then it breaks it down further. Out of the Northwest European, 33.9% of it was British Irish. And that was surprising to me, because other than like one person whose father was like from England, I had no idea that we had like any British Irish in our family. So that such a large chunk of that Northwestern, like the largest chunk of the Northwestern European was British Irish, that surprised me. So then the second largest chunk of the Northwestern European was Scandinavian. So that was what I was expecting to be the largest chunk, and that's 16.3%. So that would be the second largest chunk. So like, I knew that would be in there, but I'm surprised that it wasn't like the biggest one, since that's the one that I'd heard the most out of. So you would think that would be the most recent in my DNA and come out the strongest, but it wasn't. Then next, and this I had also said that I thought that because we had French Canadian in our family and we heard about it all the time, like you're French Canadian, obviously that must be like via France. So I thought that I'd have French. That would be my third largest, is French German at 11.3%. So like, those two that I thought would be like the top two, they're second and third. And like I said, the British Irish is the biggest, and I'm still surprised by that. And then 33.4% is broadly Northwestern European, and I guess that means that they can't just narrow it down to a place. I would have to like research more into the DNA stuff to know exactly what that means, but basically they can't narrow it down to a specific region of the Northwestern European, just that it's Northwestern European. And then 4% of my DNA was just broadly European. So there's an explanation about something covered with ice, and the continent was covered with ice a long time ago, and it was easy to travel between here and there. I don't know. But anyway, broadly European, 4%. Now here is what really surprised me about my Ancestry results, because if you remember, I said that I thought that it would have like at least some like Native American in it, because my great grandmother, it was thought that she was part Native American, and she had jet black hair, brown eyes, and she had like a darker skin tone. So everyone always thought that she was like part Native American, and it was like the secret of the family or whatever. And so I expected to see that in there. However, for the Native American, it was 0.1%, which is like nothing. That's for Native American / East Asian. So like, that's nothing. And so then I was like, well then, like, how did my great grandma, like, how did she have like the dark hair? Like, why did she look the way she looked? And then the last result was in my DNA, 1% South Asian. And I was like, okay, that surprised me, because I never heard anything about any kind of Asian in our DNA, like in our history, obviously not our DNA. I've never taken a DNA test, but like in our history, nothing about that. But South Asian is like India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, so like those areas. And then when like you click on like the more information on the 23andme stuff, it will tell you like what their estimate is as far as like how far back in your family that was. And so like even though I know like 1%, that is a really like tiny percent, but it's still like that was like the most surprising thing on my DNA results was the South Asian, even though it was only 1%. And so then I was like clicking on the more information, and 23andMe estimated that somewhere between my third and fifth great grandparent was 100% South Asian, which like that's quite a bit removed from me, but from my great grandmother, that is not quite a bit removed. That would put it much closer to her, where if she were still alive today and could do one of these tests, I am willing to bet that her South Asian DNA would be a much larger percent than mine. And so now, after thinking about this, because still like when I initially read these results, I was still very confused by the Asian part, like I said, because no one had ever said anything about that. But then after like a day later, after thinking about it, I'm like, wait, because I was still like, how did my great grandmother look the way she looked? So then I was like, okay, wait. So South Asian, like India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, people from there, as far as I've seen, and I'm no like expert in like what everyone from one region looks like, but the ones that I have known from there, they have like black hair, darker skin tone. Like, so that's where I believe that my great grandmother got her jet black hair and her brown eyes and her darker skin coloring. So where we thought that she was Native American, and back when I was a kid, a lot of people just said Indian instead of Native American, so they would be like, they thought that my great grandmother was part Indian. Perhaps they meant from India rather than Native American, how we took it. So anyway, that was the most surprising part at first, but then when I gave it more thought, it made more sense, and then it was clear in my mind that that is where I believe my great grandmother's features and everything features and coloring came from. And I really wish she was still alive so that I could go back and have her tested and just see what her DNA is. I don't know. It'll be interesting, I guess. My grandmother still is alive, to like have my grandmother tested and my mother and see like what their percent of South Asian is, because it should be higher than my percent. I think my mother's would be higher and my grandmother's should be higher than that, I would think. I don't know. And then like that would make it more clear that that's where that strand of like DNA came from, and confirm in my mind more that that was why my great grandmother looked the way she looked. But I don't know. My family is very secretive on my grandma's side, where my great grandma was, because I know that previously I had like joined Ancestry.com, and I was in there like researching things for a while, and we were always told that my great grandmother's mother was an orphan, and like basically she grew up without parents. But through census records, I was able to establish and determine that that was not true, that my great grandmother's mother, so which would have been what, my great great grandmother, that she was not an orphan. Her mother did die when she was younger, but her father did not. And on the census record, she is listed living with her father every year until she was married off at a very young age to a man that was older than her. And so I don't know if that was like an embarrassment or like if it was normal, like completely normal, but she was very, very young, like super like creepy young when she was married off and started showing on the other census to the guy who I know was the father of her kids, and it was her husband. So anyway, there's lots of secrets, so I'll never know exactly really, because no one has like been forthcoming with the truth up to this point. And so since the wrong information was verbally passed down, and then the people who actually know the truth have long passed now. I may never know the full truth, but maybe one of these days I will be able to get, like I said, my mother and my grandmother to do the tests so that, like, at least the DNA percentage wise, we can kind of link it back. But that was my results. 99% European and 1% South Asian. Anyway, I just wanted to get this up before I forgot. And I also want my brother to do one so I can learn more about my father's side, because from what I understand, they can test males for something that they can't test females for, and it's a more complete picture and it shows stuff from your father's side. So I wish that I was on terms with my brother where I could request that he do it and then I could look at his results, but I don't know. That's all. That was my results for my 23andme. Kind of expected, like, as far as the European, but a little surprises thrown in there. Anyway, talk to you guys later. Bye.